I was asking Mike if it would be bright enough out here to be able to read what I've written here, and it is bright up here, I will tell you. Anyway, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's gala evening. My name is Alan Champlin, and I am pleased, honored, and privileged to introduce the 2013 Industry Achievement winner, Grant Wilson. When Gary Hamilton advised Grant that he was going to be presented with this award, he also told Grant that he needed to have a friend or a colleague introduce him. I feel very special that Grant asked me, as I definitely consider myself to be a colleague, but more importantly, a friend. This award recognizes members of the WRLA who have contributed to their business, the building supply industry, the WRLA, and the communities in which they serve. Grant meets and exceeds all of that criteria. In fact, we kind of consider him, he's the poster boy for exactly what this award was created for. Back in 1970, when I think many of you remember, it was called the Lumberwinds Award. Grant represents the true independent entrepreneur, starting the family business from scratch with nothing handed to him. He had to earn it. Despite the success that Grant has achieved, the things he is most passionate about are his family, his employees, his customers, his friends, and his community. A few things and a few milestones about Grant. He married Sandra in 1966. Together they worked hand in hand on their very interesting and successful never-ending journey. That included farming and also working in Wilson's General Store in Quipella, Saskatchewan. And Wilson's, if anybody knows it, was a grocery hardware business that was started by his father in 1950. And that business grew to become the largest independent grocery retailer by volume in Saskatchewan. So I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, does it, Grant? In 1980, along with Sandra and his three young sons, Brett, Lee, and Ryan, they started Wind Country Building Services in McLean, Saskatchewan. Grant had done some renovations in his father's store, built a few farm buildings, I think, on his farm, and I guess he felt that qualified him for the lumber and building material business, so away he went. In reality, and this says a lot about Grant, the reason he started the business in a small, vacant building in McLean was that he wanted to make his hometown of McLean a more viable community, and that was the start of Wood Country. There was a local town meeting discussing closing the local store, and Grant wasn't having any part of that. Grant asked him to put that decision on hold. He started the business to create employment and growth in McLean so that the school would not close. And it didn't close. The school stayed open, and the rest is history. If anybody remembers 1980, when they started their business, it was the height of the recession. Interest rates were reaching all-time highs. No problem for Grant and Sandra. 1981, he joined Merchants Consolidated until, I think a lot of you people in the room probably know, they had unfortunate situation, bankruptcy in the late 80s. 1988, he joined Castle Building Centers. 1997, he opened his second store in Tisdale, Saskatchewan. Following year, 1998, he opened his third store in Estevan, Saskatchewan. In 2001, Grant became the first ever Castle Area Group Leader for Saskatchewan. From 2004 to 2008, he served on the Castle Board of Directors, part of that time doing double duty then as director and as area group leader. All three of Grant and Sandra's sons, Brett, Lee, and Ryan, who are all here tonight, sitting right out there, have worked in the business, and Lee and Ryan have taken on increasing management responsibilities, allowing Grant and Sandra to enjoy their fun in the sun in their Las Vegas winter home. Few words that describe Grant Wilson, and believe me, for you people out there that know him, there's a lot of words to describe Grant Wilson, but in no particular order: integrity, entrepreneur, professional, team player, family man, loyal, successful, competitive. And if anybody has ever talked to Grant, you hear all his fastball stories and his hockey stories and so forth. He just loves that. He's determined, he's a winner, he's a hard worker, and he's a visionary. And he's a teacher and a mentor, and I can personally speak to that. When I started working with Grant back in 2001 actually, he took me under his wing and taught a raw rookie the lumber and building material business. But the one truly amazing thing about Grant is that, this amazes me, his work is his hobby. I don't think, in his mind, he's worked a day in his life. It's fun for him, and he lives it every day. I know Grant is thrilled and humbled to be presented with this award and to be included along with previous prestigious winners such as Ken Sexton, Jim Thorogood, Bob Mundy, Pro Wiley, his buddies Dave Holst and Frank Pera, just to name a few. But Grant, you can now sit at the same table as them without having to sit in a smaller chair. I would like to present the 2013 WRLA Industry Achievement winner, Mr. Grant Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, Board of Directors, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Al. I think maybe what I should do is see if I can get in this position again, because I enjoyed all the compliments so much that a guy really should hear that more often and just come back all the time. Great job, Al. Thank you very much. To the WRLA, I certainly appreciate getting the award. And I accept it on behalf of myself, Sandra, and our boys. Everyone has had a part to play in our growth and success in the beginning and currently. We're now well into our 34th year, but our startup was totally ground zero. It couldn't get any lower unless you're underground. I thought tonight we'd travel back in time and set the scene as to how and why we started. Our local school, as Al mentioned, was having enrollment problems. We had a special meeting in June of 1980 to see if we could solve some problems. A week later, I wrote a letter to the trustees addressing the issues as I seen them, asking them to hold off on any decisions for 2 years. I also told them within 10 years, they had put an addition on the school. I became chairman of the local school board shortly thereafter. I think it was to keep an eye on them. Anyway, in August of 1980, we're invited to family reunion in BC to an aunt's place in the Oyama, BC. She had moved there in the 1950s, and she wanted all the Prairie relatives to come. So it was at that point, in early August, we decided to start a lumber hardware business when we come back from BC. So we got 3 boys in the back seat of our car, heading to BC, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and I told them to come up with a name for a lumber hardware company. When we come back, we're going to start it. And the background to this was our town had got down to a post office, a small grocery store, and a gas station. So as we went, I gave them the task of coming up with an independent name. It could have no family names like their grandpa's store. It must be independent, so if someone else owned it, they weren't stuck with our name. 1 mile down the road, 8-year-old Lee said, "Call it Lee's Lumber." I think he takes after his mother. I said, "That's family, get thinking." Another minute later, he said, "Well, call it Wood Country." I said, "Good thinking, keep going." Sandra and I got in the game as well, all the way to BC and all the way back, but never come up with anything better. We incorporated in September of 1980. My lawyer, Gary Lane, looked after legal paperwork. We signed up with the Royal Bank, hired Ernst & Young as accountants, got our insurance in place, and filled out our credit app with suppliers. There's probably a story to each one of those sign-ups with banks and accountants, but we don't have the time tonight. There's a lot of humor in watching them look at this thing where it's going to succeed or not. We had 3 lots off Main Street that required 100 truckloads of fill. We put up a fence, a set of gates to keep the honest people out. and we bought a used forklift and a truckload of lumber. The next step was our office in a vacant store building on Main Street, 1.5 blocks from our compound. We had a phone, a desk, 2 chairs, 1 scale, an old cash register, 1 set of shelves, nails, flagging, some rope for tying loads down. You know, when you stood back and looked at this operation, you knew it was nothing but success. If you were drinking. What could go wrong? We're starting out in an all-out recession, but we didn't realize it. We were too busy getting started. So while we organized all of the company requirements, we still had a farm with harvest to start and complete. So I decided we'd complete the harvest before opening the doors at Wood Country. So therefore, even though our year end was September 30th, we actually started November the 1st of 1980. When we finished harvest, Sandra's workload with kids, meals, clothes, and keeping up with the general housework would now increase as she started her Wood Country office and part-time shipping duties. See, when you're a 2-man or 2-lady crew or whatever, you become shipper and receiver and the rest of it, as well as selling. We were closed on Thursday, but on Mondays, I would drive to Regina for small wholesale pickups. During my time on the road, Sandra would invoice, oversee, and help customers loading lumber. Sandra would load the lumber. Anyway, Sandra's work ethic in our home and business allowed me to ship, receive, get pricing done after hours to keep up with our expanding customer base. Sandra's clerical load was expanding to where we could say she was a multitasker. The business would not grow even in today's business world without that kind of backup on the home front. Now, after telling you about Sandra's work ethic contributing to our growth and success, guess who I received my first resignation from? Well, it was Sandra. A local farmer dropped a 2x10 in her fingers. She more or less said, "To hell with that shipping stuff." She then moved into clerical division. The spring of 1981, we took another step. We bought the vacant lumberyard on Main Street, McLean. We put an ad out for our first employee. Would you believe we received 53 applicants? Think about that in today's terms. We'd probably all pass out. Our business continued to grow with more inventory, employees, equipment, and of course more bills. The major factors I see for our family's success has been a strong work ethic, excellent control of our finances, and financial responsibility in our home and business. When I've interviewed job applicants over time, I've told them that no matter what they do, if they're going to be successful, there are 4 letters that will get in their way. WRK. But it will lead to success. Back in time for a moment, I told the school trustees they put an addition on the McLean School within 10 years. They actually put $1 million addition on in 9 years. In today's terms, that might be 3 or 4 million. The McLean School, with the addition, became the most modern K-9 school in the unit. Now, like a lot of places get overcrowded and whatnot, we had to find a place to move our store uptown to, so we bought a piece of property by the Trans-Canada. And in the summer of 1994, we built a new store and actually opened it February 20th, 95 on the Trans-Canada location. On April 1st, as mentioned previously here, we bought Ace Building Center in Tisdale. We took stock, computerized them, as in point of sale, and set up a complete inventory system from Friday at closing until Monday morning, the next opening day. The following April, in 1998, we bought property in Estevan, Saskatchewan, started from ground up a new store, hired a complete team of employees, added fixtures, and stocked the store. We opened June 22nd, approximately 2 months from breaking ground on the project. We tried a soft opening, or in other words, trying to keep the opening somewhat secret to let our employees get used to the point of sale gradually. Our secret didn't work well, as 1,500 people came in the first week. We were told that if we didn't open on Sundays, we wouldn't last 6 months. Well, here we are 15 years later, still closed on Sunday. So much for the Americanization of Canada. We have no knowledgeable people. We have knowledgeable people. No, that's what's happening when you put an ad out now. We have knowledgeable people doing a good job in 6 days. I'd like to bring you up to speed on our 3 sons. All attended the U of S right here in Saskatoon. The boys worked on the farm and in the business and shipping, receiving, well through school. Brett moved to a summer job in hospital pharmacy to be in tune with his studies. Lee and Ryan, in turn, gradually moved into counter sales and estimating. Brett, our oldest son, graduated from U of S as a pharmacist and currently works in clinical research with a large pharmaceutical company. Lee and Ryan graduated from U of S with commerce degrees with majors in accounting and marketing. And upon graduation first, Lee decided he wanted to work in the company, and then Ryan, by his choice, also decided to work in the company. If you think about it in family terms, it's much better when the family wants to work in the company instead of mom and dad saying, hey, you should work in the company. I managed to download, over time, major responsibilities to Lee and Ryan. Allows me time to work with accountants, banks, miscellaneous office projects, and visit Tisdale and Estevan in the summer. Work remotely in the winter months, restructuring inventory systems in all 3 stores. Oh yeah, and I had another note handed to me after, guess who resigned after 29 years? Sandra again. She said that's enough numbers. But she's a troubleshooter in the office when they have problems, and she's a chief greenhouse operator. We have some great long-term employees. They don't have the same last name, but we have pretty much adopted them as family. Our sales territory over the years has been west of Vancouver Island, BC mainland, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, parts of Ontario, and the USA. I hope that our story may inspire other people to look at their hometown with more confidence in regard to doing business. I've always compared business to sports. When reading a sports book recently, there's a quote that fits our family and perhaps many others. And the quote goes like this: well, you have to work hard to become successful. The truth is that most who have gone far received a whole lot of backing from friends and family at key moments. That's pretty fitting for anybody, I think. I would like to thank the WRLA again for what I call our Family Achievement Award. I wish everyone, including the vendor and retail community, good health and success in your future endeavors. And remember the 4 letters that give you success in your personal, home, and business: WORK. Thank you and good evening.